You ready to do some rapid fire?
Please. Let's bring it on.
All right.
Please.
And of course, you can always still bring more questions as we're going through rapid fire, but we will start off with some of our own. Scale of 1 to 10. What is your confidence in this potential Gerad Parker, Gino Guidugli, offensive coordinator, quarterback coach combo?
I mean, they've got the deck stacked in their favor at the moment with the roster and with the talent that is there, with the quarterback that's there, with two all-American caliber tackles and the running back room. I mean, the deck is stacked in their favor, right? And so the potential is high. Like, so your question is, what's your confidence in the potential? Potential is like a 9.
Well, no. They haven't been hired to these positions yet. I'm just saying.
Oh, that they're going to get hired?
Right.
Oh,
No. Not that they're going to get hired. It's not signed on the dotted line right now, Vince. So it's a potential pairing.
I see what you're saying. Okay. my confidence level is like an 8. I will say an 8. But a lot of that has to do with what the roster looks like. They're walking in the door just like, oh man, we got weapons. Like, let's go. It's not a situation where the entire staff is new. You got to learn everybody. You've got to figure out what you have, maybe hit the transfer portal, like all those different things. Like it's an 8 because they've got a heck of a roster to work with. And then the little bits and pieces that I've gotten about what Gerad Parker's belief system is and the offense that he wants to run, I think fits this group very, very well. And I think it's more of a college style. So I like that. So I think the potential is really good. I like it. So I'm going to go 8.
And the college style is more what I'm looking for. You know, like you turn on the TV on Saturdays and you see what are obviously college offenses, and they are geared toward college athletes and college quarterbacks. And that means sometimes you have to simplify some things so that you have these really good athletes coming out of high school who can jump in and play, because we see a lot of freshmen all over the country playing, whether it's wide receiver or running back, whatever it happens to be. We haven't always seen that here at Notre Dame. So I like that. I'm still in, I think, the 7 range. I'm not quite as excited as you, just because, again, look, this is a relatively inexperienced play caller, a guy who has called plays in Parker, but he did it with someone else's offense. So, like, he can talk about theories and all these different things. We have to see what this looks like when it comes together. This is not a guy with a couple decades of experience like they were ready to hire. So that's a question for me. This Guidugli, seems like, again, like when you look at what he did with Desmond Ridder, this is a big part of it. The quarterback coach, and that was high on my list when we were talking about candidates last week, is someone who can develop the quarterback. So I definitely like that. And I think that there is a lot of potential, but I think, as a couple of other people have already said, it is still potential. There's just very little that we know about tangibly about what it's going to look like.
And that's scary, right? It's scary because this team as a whole has a lot of potential for what they could do in 23 and 24. And you're sticking a lot of pressure and a lot of expectations on an offensive coordinator with 1 year experience and a quarterback's coach who does have a ton of experience. So it's going to be interesting. But again, if you're Marcus Freeman, he trusts those guys explicitly. And I think that goes a long way.
Yeah. Uncle Fred
needs to take
simmer down a little bit.
He's approaching jabroni status.
Simmer down. Yeah, that's right. You're getting up there, Fred. We get it. Marcus Freeman is still an inexperienced head coach. He has 1 year on the job. I wouldn't call him in over his head, because there are a lot of things that he is well above water on. And I think the way that he has adapted on the fly to try to handle this situation, it's
Marcus Freeman is playing the hand that he is dealt, right? And the hand he was dealt was, go after this guy. You can have him if you can get him to come. He did everything everything that he could do to get him there. Then he was told no. he pivoted immediately and moved on to the next
And,
thing.
a big part of this as well is like Marcus Freeman has from day one. He jumped in with both feet at Notre Dame, and he bought into everything that Notre Dame is, and he hasn't made excuses for anything, whether it's recruiting or like the NIL, none of this stuff. There have been no excuses for anything. And as we've talked about all along, he's been willing to look internally and over the course of the season, he adapted on the fly. And again, this is a first-time head coach, and that was going to be the biggest question with him. He's still a first-time head coach. How is he going to handle all these things, especially on game day, that you don't have to handle when you are, even as a coordinator, you don't have to handle them. As the head coach, the buck stops with you. You're the ultimate decision maker on everything. Was it perfect? Absolutely not. But he's adapted on the fly, and he keeps doing that. And he's not going to make excuses. And he's pushing his chips to the table with this decision. With this Parker specifically, and again, bringing in what seems like a pretty good quarterback coach in Guidugli to go along with him, but it's all on him right now. It's sink or swim with him, and I think that he absolutely knows that.
I believe that I was genuinely not worried, but Parker wasn't my first choice, obviously, but I think bringing in Guidugli and his experience softens that blow for me, and it makes me more optimistic about what this duo can do with this offense, for sure.
Right.
For sure.
I want to go back to Fred here because he's saying Freeman didn't jump in with both feet on offense. Now that weakness in his coaching,
he didn't have a choice.
They hired the offensive coordinator before they hired the head coach. And again, like going back to what the analogy we were making between Jack Swarbrick and Jerry Jones, that is a very Jerry Jones thing. It's like, oh, we're going to keep Kellen Moore on, even though we fired everybody else on the staff, but I want to keep Kellen Moore around because he might be a head coach one day. Those kind of things. And that's like a very Swarbrick thing, or a very Jerry Jones thing that Swarbrick did. And, could Marcus Freeman have been more involved in the offense? Probably. But at the same time, as a defensive coach who's a first-time head coach, he didn't come in and try to micromanage a guy who was obviously handpicked by the athletic director to begin with. There's again, I think that there was some tension there that was showing up.
Yep. Completely agree.
Yeah. All right. So our next question. When we had the chance to speak with Notre Dame's defensive newcomers last week, I asked Preston Zinter, freshman linebacker, about what the plans are for him this spring. And here's what Zinter had to say, quote, "Right now, Coach Golden is telling us to learn all the positions, all the three linebacker positions, Mike, Will, and Rover. So we've been studying all those kinds of positions. But there's been some talk about on heavier downs where I might get moved up on the line if there's a 5-man front and all that kind of stuff. But right now, I'll be focusing on all three linebacker positions," end quote. Now, Brian, after we put this out, he put it up on the board, I think late, we talked to him Friday, so we put it out over the weekend. This was something that I meant to bring up the other day, but we've had a few things going on. So I'm curious what you think about these freshman linebackers learning all three linebacker positions coming in the door, Vince.
So remember how I said that I was intrigued by the fact that Gerad Parker is more worried about fundamentals and not knowing the entire playbook, and how that's more of a college-oriented scheme, and how excited I was?
Mm-hmm.
That should tell you how I feel about this particular situation, because I don't need these guys to be masters of everything. I don't. That's not necessary. They're freshmen. Pick a position, let them learn that position. As they get older, let them branch out a little bit. That's fine. But trying to throw all of that terminology, all of that understanding at freshmen when they first show up, I think that's a huge mistake. It's a very NFL mentality. That is not a college mentality. Those are for people whose full-time job it is to be a football player, and there's no restrictions on time and all of that. You can practice 24 hours a day if you want to, right? College, you're limited to 20 hours a week during the season. This is not what you need to be doing with early enrollee incoming freshmen. Too much.
Right. See, Stymie likes it. He says it's great. It helps to learn everyone's responsibility. To
Not when you're
me,
17.
it's to me as an early enrollee going into your first spring, they should say, okay, Zinter, you're, a Mike, Bowen, whatever these
Right.
guys, whatever they see them as, focus on one thing this spring. Once they learn that and they are competent at that, okay, now we're going into fall training camp. Maybe you can start cross training at the will a little bit more, and especially all three, because it's like, I get that they want to have some flexibility and different stuff like that, but it's just, to me, it's too much for, as you said, these are guys who should still be in high school right now, freshmen,
Right.
early enrollees. It's too much to put on their plate right away to have them learning three positions. Let them learn one, get good at it, and then once you deem them competent at that one position, then you add the second, and then maybe by next spring, the third, if you feel like it, because all these guys have different body types. Not all of them are even going to be
Right.
able to play rover. Like, why even mess with that?
Yeah, it's too much. It's just too much. And it's not, again, it's an NFL mentality, because in the NFL, you're restricted to how many guys you can have dressed and, how many guys can contribute. That is not the case at Notre Dame or any other college for that matter. You can dress 100 guys. You don't need them all to know every position. It's ridiculous.
That's right. And I agree with this, Keith. Maybe that's why the linebackers are struggling. I don't disagree with that. David asks, do you know if Watt gets promoted to O-line coach? Are they still searching for candidates? I like the Bart Miller from Illinois as a candidate. I don't know much about the Bart Miller, but have you heard anything O-line wise? It's been very quiet along that front.
It has been extremely quiet O-line wise, because as of 24 hours ago, Ludwig was going to bring his own offensive line coach. So I think they're kind of starting from ground zero when it comes to the offensive line coach. I think Chris Watt will be a candidate, but I don't, he's not going to be just given the job. And I don't feel like that is, I don't feel like that's the way to go immediately. Now, maybe he rises to the top, the cream rises to the top, right? Maybe he is the best candidate for the job, but I don't think just handing it over is what they're planning on doing, because if they were, when Harry retired, it would all been part of the same announcement.
Right.
Because Watt is a Harry guy, and it would have
Right.
been like, Harry Hiestand retires, Chris Watt to take over. So they're obviously looking at other candidates, although I do think Chris Watt is a candidate.
Right. I would agree with that as well. And based on everything, he did give up an actual position to come up here and be on the staff and work under Harry Hiestand. I think they all thought it was going to last more than 1 year. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, based on everything that we know about him and considering who he worked with, I think that he would be, he's a really solid choice. Again, like, are they going to look for someone with more experience? What do they think of his teaching ability? All those different things. So.
Absolutely.
So Vince, Justin Fields, forgot the S, says that he wants to be in the loop for what the Chicago Bears plan to do with the number 1 pick in the draft. Do you buy or sell? Justin Fields needs to be in the loop on the Bears draft plans for that pick.
So obviously I'm a Bears fan, and yes. I'm not.
Why are you getting asked this question?
No, I get it. I'm just putting it out there for everybody else in case there's people in here that don't know.
Okay.
It depends on what in the loop means. Okay. If it just means, hey, we're thinking about taking this guy, just letting him know. Okay. I have no problem with that. Let him know. Right. Okay, cool. If they're asking his opinion, right, that's where I have a problem.
That's what I was going to say. It's one thing to say, right, hey, here's what we're probably going to do. It's another thing to say, hey, what do you think we should do? Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. I'm not. And if I did ask him that question as the GM, it's kind of going in one ear and out the other. Maybe I do that to placate my quarterback, that kind of a thing. He has no say in who we're picking number 1. None.
Yeah.
None.
I don't think Bill Belichick was bouncing draft pick ideas off Tom Brady very often.
Right. Right.
Like, even Tom Brady didn't get that luxury. And I don't think that there's, like, Justin Fields, if I was going to look at the current quarterbacks in the NFL who would probably deserve that, whatever. Aaron Rodgers was talking about it a couple of years ago, and he and Gutekunst kind of got together and they had at least more conversations about what were going on. I would probably put Aaron Rodgers in there. I would put Patrick Mahomes in there. Like guys who have won some Super Bowls, I would give them consideration. Anybody else, probably not.
He's sorry, no.
Yeah.
No. He hasn't done anything to earn that right at all. And again, if I'm the GM, I don't care if I've got Tom Brady as my quarterback. Again, hey, what do you think? We'll have coffee. We have coffee. We'll talk about it. But
that's right.
It's not like he's going to be in the draft room sitting next to me, checking guys off like that. That's not. So you can be in the loop. I'll let you know what we're thinking about, but that's about it.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Okay, let me see. What's our next question here? Fill in the blank. It's blank. The Super Bowl had more than 113 million viewers.
Not surprising. It's the number one TV show every single year in America outside of the World Cup. I know so many people had, 113 million versus 4 billion. Okay, great. Got it. It's called American football for a reason. I'm not surprised. It's a big number, but it was a good game. Like it kept people involved all the way to the end. And so you're going to get good viewership that way. So I think it's absolutely appropriate and not surprising in any way.
Derek says fake news. Okay, whatever. It's about a third of the population of the United States. And it's like,
just saying,
what are you doing if you're not watching the Super Bowl? Like, do we really have that many people here who weren't watching the Super Bowl Sunday night? It's like, it's what you're supposed to be doing. It's the Super Bowl. After all, it's like, I always wonder what those people, like 2/3 of the country, when I was driving home, I would talk about the fact that like I got home just in time for the game to start. There were very few people on the streets when I was driving home from Purcell Pavilion the other night. It's like, man, Super Bowl night, so.
And I saw somebody post on social media somewhere like, if you're not watching the Super Bowl, now's a great time to go grocery shopping because the aisles will be completely open. There's not going to be anybody there. You can drive in and out, have no problems. So I'm sure that's true.
Yeah. Brian said he boycotted because he's a Bengals fan. Many Bengals fans boycotted.
Okay,
I can see that. You lost
fair
in the AFC Championship game. Like, if I boycotted, I wouldn't have watched a Super Bowl for like the last going on 27 years. So Vince, pitchers and catchers reported today. And as I saw somebody bring up, Notre Dame baseball starts this weekend, but I've got a Major League Baseball question for you. They're going to keep this runner at second base in extra innings going forward. Do you buy or sell that?
I couldn't sell this more. This is the worst rule ever. I hate this rule. It's not real. Putting a guy at second base, like I don't understand. I understand why they're doing it. It's the whole time thing, right? They want to speed it up. They don't want to have extra innings, blah, 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 blah.
Use as few pitchers as possible and all that.
Absolutely hate it. That's not real baseball. It changes your strategy big time. Why teams don't just sacrifice bunt the guy from second to third on the first out and then just hit a fly ball is absolutely beyond me. And I realize it's difficult to hit a fly ball. Okay, whatever, fine. But that's what you should do every single time. You're going to get a runner in scoring position with one out every single time. And if every player in your lineup doesn't know how to bunt, then that's on you as a coach.
That's right. I was really not in on this initially when they started doing it. They started this during the pandemic shortened season,
right?
And all that. I guess what was that? The summer of 2020 is when they started doing it, and they've kept it. And it's kind of like I get it to an extent, because like in hockey and in soccer for that matter, you have shootouts. But like in hockey, you have the shootout during the regular season. But once you get to the postseason, the runner, like the shootout goes away and it's just like overtime after overtime after overtime. And it's really the same.
I didn't even know that about hockey.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's
soccer,
the
they
same
don't
with
do
baseball.
shootouts. Soccer, they don't do shootouts unless it's an elimination type game. They
Right.
just play the extra overtime, and if it's a tie, it's a tie. So I would rather have a freaking tie than have runners at second base. Sorry.
Yeah, I just like the marathon games, which is what they're trying to cut down on. I'm fine with that because baseball has become, and it's like you do get more action pretty quickly once you get to extra innings by having this runner on base. And I mean, that's honestly something that baseball is lacking, obviously. I'd be shocked if within 10 years they're not going, whoa, what about when the fifth inning rolls around, we put the runner out there at second base just to generate some action, But so I'm not as down on this as I initially was because I get, again, it's like I love baseball. You love baseball. It gets harder to watch baseball games all the time because of the lack of action. So I have no problem with trying to cut down on these marathon games, speed things up once they get to extra innings and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not completely anti the runner in extra.
I get it. I get where you're coming from, but I hate it. I hate it. I just don't like it.
Yeah. Yeah. Jason said home run derby for overtime. And I think they've tried that in minor league baseball before.
Have they really?
Home run derby. Yeah.
That's funny. Because that's not real baseball either. Home run derby, you completely change your swing. I don't like that either.
So Vince, we haven't talked about the Quantum Leap reboot in a while. Are you in on this? Are you out on it? Where are you with the Quantum Leap right now?
I'm all caught up. I've watched every episode. I have never watched an episode live. I always watch it after the fact.
Yeah.
But I am all caught up, and I have to say I'm digging the intrigue. What I like the most about the current Quantum Leap, I think I like the stories of the actual leaps better in the old one. Okay. But I will say that the storyline outside of the leap, everything that's going on kind of behind the scenes
in the lab or whatever that is.
Right.
Yeah.
I dig that. That's a new thing. And
you didn't really get that in the original.
No, you didn't get that at all. You never saw behind the curtain ever. And so I kind of dig that part. And I agree with Irish Chi-Town. There's no Scott Bakula, and that is a problem.
Yes.
It's a huge problem that they should have figured out before they started doing this. 100% agree with that.
If they make it to season 2, it'd be awesome if they could have a couple times where they cross paths or something.
There is a season 2. It's happening.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I didn't even know that.
Yes.
I'm surprised.
I know.
Remember that show Timeless that we both used to watch a few years back? See, I was much more in on that show than I am on this Quantum Leap.
That.
I think my favorite episode of the Quantum Leap reboot was a couple weeks ago when they were in that nuclear plant, and he was stuck in this loop
and he kept
for a
going
while, and he leaped into like every person who was in the room. That's been my favorite episode, I think, so far.
Yeah, I agree.
I started watching the basketball episode a couple weeks ago, and I didn't. It wasn't appealing to me right away.
Me neither. I watched the whole thing.
Yeah.
It just got. I hate to say this, and I don't want to offend anybody. That's not my goal. It got too political. No matter what side you fall on.
And that's what, as soon as it started, I'm like, do I really want to watch this?
Yeah, exactly. It's too political. I don't like it when the shows I watch get too political unless I'm watching like West Wing and it's supposed to be political. You know what I mean? Or Madam President or something like that. No, keep the politics and that stuff out of it. I just want to be entertained, and it felt way too political in that particular episode.
Did they do an episode this week?
They did not. There's going to be one next week.
So. I didn't see anything new in my DVR.
I looked it up because when I saw your questions, I was like, crap, I didn't watch the one from Monday. And
you're like, there is no Monday.
Because there wasn't one. So I was like, whew. But yeah, there's another one coming out on Monday. And these are the extended ones because they ordered like 6 new episodes after like the first 3.
Oh, really?
Which I thought was interesting. So these
knowing that there's a season 2 already ordered, I hope they find a way to incorporate Scott Bakula.
I hope so.
I heard that he didn't want to do it initially.
Yeah.
It would be
Then you
cool if
didn't
they could like
try
run
hard enough.
into each other, like
Yeah.
Bacula's still out there leaping 30 years later, that kind of stuff.
They didn't try hard enough if he didn't want to be a part of it. That's what I
Yeah.
say. You didn't recruit him hard enough if he said no.
I agree. All right. Well, a lot of good questions tonight. Appreciate it as always. We've we've got
Lots to talk about.
a new storyline to talk about. That's for
Lots
sure.
to talk about.
That's right. Offensive line coach is next. We'll be back on Friday. We won't be here tomorrow. I've got a women's basketball game tomorrow, Notre Dame and Louisville. So we've got that coming up, and we'll be back for the Friday rapid fire with Jesse, Vince, and I. So I don't know if Chance is serious about this, but just real quick, will Parker be the O-line coach? They still have to hire an O-line coach.
No.
So.
And Brian has put out a story that, Gerad Parker is going to be the OC. So if he put it out, then we can say it that he's going to be the OC. That's the plan. So they got their quarterback coach. They got their offensive coordinator. Now they just need to find an offensive line coach.
Right. Complete the staff and move on. Spring practice is just around the corner.
Yep.
When you think about it.
No doubt.
All right. Smash the like button if you would on your way out. We definitely appreciate it. Subscribe, rate, and review. Leave us a review, comment on your podcast platforms. And in the meantime, we'll talk to you Friday on Abbey Nation Sports Talk.